So today I'm going to talk through the double diamond coaching method. And this is a method that I've brought to my coaching since day one, actually, since my very first client, because I've always thought about coaching almost through the exact same lens as how I would practice physiotherapy. And there's method behind this system, which I think is really, really robust now, having practiced it for nearly 2 years. And I really want to demonstrate the organic value of really, really thorough coaching and how much of a difference that can make in your practice. So the frustrations, honestly, in this field is there are just so many cookie cutter solutions. Do this and it'll work for you. And it might work for some people and it doesn't work for other people, because unless you're a like for like swap with the person who is promoting it from a practice perspective, like they're an inner city practice and this works 100% for their crowd and it's exactly like yours, it's probably just not going to work, because we are not homogenous entities. I think a lot of people get on into coaching and you just end up with these endless Q and answer sessions and long tangents, and there's no structure to what's going on. It's very much the coach is kind of going, well, you've got access to me for an hour, so ask me anything. And there's a bit of a lack of depth. Many people struggle with the lack of depth they're getting from their coaches because they don't fundamentally understand their business and what's unique about it. And that's a real challenge in this space. Everyone wants coaching to be bespoke, taking account of your exact situation. And you want someone who's actually going to be accountable to the advice that they're giving you as well. So doing it through a lens that isn't just shooting from the hip, but actually taking you through the steps as to why they're advising you to do it this way and what your options are. So you can, at the end of the day, make the final call. But there's a layer of accountability and there's a process underlying it. And I think the mistakes people make when they're looking for business coaches in particular are looking for who owns the best clinic or who owns the biggest practice, because they're going to know all the steps. And they do. They probably do know all of the steps. But what you're looking for is someone who is good at coaching and teaching other people those steps. And thinking that large owners make the best business coaches is a massive oversight, because they are really good at running a business. And you know what they say, like people who can do, people who can't teach. Like I'm very happy to be lumped into the people who can't, who teach, because I love teaching and I love helping people grow their businesses. To be honest, I grew my business in 4 years to over $1 million, and I'm content with that. And I'm happy in the space that I work with now. And there's plenty of bigger business owners out there who know that playbook. They know their playbook back to front. But I think it's a mistake to look to those people, especially when you're at small scale. Even at medium size, you've got to look to people who are values aligned with you, who are going to prioritize your business as if it's theirs, not people who have their own business that they work in, where their coaching is just a side project and you are just a side hustle for those people. And no disrespect, there's a lot of really good coaches as well who manage both things really well. The big idea today is the double diamond coaching method. So it's straight out of design principles. It's funny that it actually looks and feels like a subjective, objective examination, a treatment and a plan as well. It's the same 4 levels of a process. So we go through a discovery phase, a defining what are the problems, the same way you do an objective assessment as a physio. We develop potential solutions and then we act to deliver it. So it's sounding familiar, hopefully. Now, for everyone who works with me, there's a simple process. We do a discovery call that is just a free 15 minutes. It's just for me to get an idea of who you are, what you're after, and whether my solution is even worth you considering or not. For people that come through that, we get into a strategy session. Again, this is free because it's a vetting process. It's very much saying, are you someone who's going to do well in my system, or are you someone who I should potentially direct to somebody else in the field, or are your goals really in alignment with where you want to be? So rarely do I take everybody who comes through this process. It really has to fit a certain criteria for me as well, which is to make sure fundamentally like there's values alignment, because I don't do this to make as much money as possible. I do this to make the best practices which benefit the people that work in those practices, it benefits the patients who come in, and it benefits their local community. And there's a certain archetype of owner who functions really well in my coaching setup. And there are other archetypes who might function really well in alternative coaching setups as well. So it's not a one-size-fits-all model. It's about trying to find people who are the best fit. Now, when you come through and become a client of mine, I've got basically a 4-session onboarding strategy, beginning with your why. So in session 1, we'll talk about your why. What is your purpose? What are your values? What is driving you to do what you do on a daily basis? Because that is the foundation we set for everything above that. And it gives us real insight into where to go with coaching and with your business and with your personal life as well. We look at your clinic, the story behind your clinic, and also at a high level, what your goals are, what the direction you want to go in, and how you define success for yourself. That gives a really good foundation for us to work from. It's all about you and the direction you want to go in. In session 2, this is my favorite part because this is the financial deep dive. And I've recently realized that not many people actually do this. And it boggles my mind because for me as a coach, if I don't know what's in your P&L, what's on your balance sheet and whatnot, I'm absolutely guessing as to the advice I'm giving you. And I did this with a client last week, going through the P&L, going through the balance sheet, cash flow and whatnot. We did it in 20 minutes, 30 minutes. But the next morning, I went through that stuff with a coffee in a bit more detail, just on my own, to get a really good understanding in my own head about where the potential gaps are, especially in the P&L and the balance sheet, because I've been an owner, you look at your balance sheet like the day before you sell your practice, like you're never looking at those things. It's actually really, really important. It's really helpful to inform what goes on in your business. And similarly with your P&L, like a lot of people glance at it. And I think fundamentally, the changes that tend to be made in P&Ls in session 2 are moving them from a P&L which looks really good from an accounting perspective. So often people's profit and loss functions really well for their accountant. So it makes it easy for their accountant to do all their reporting and whatnot, which makes sense as to why it's been set up that way. But it's not management style accounting, meaning you look at your P&L and you can't get the information you need. And there's a couple of really critical points which I think we need to pull out of people's P&Ls on day one, which is one, getting transparency on what wages are, how much percentage your wages are compared to your total revenue, where your salaries are coming in, what your admin costs are, and just get real clarity around those things and break things down accordingly. And that's often the first thing I do, is just change not what's in it, but how it's presented to give clarity. So you can still glance at it once a month, but you know exactly where to look and what to pick out from it. And I actually really enjoy doing that because it's something I've been doing for years and years and years. If I'm really honest, the question I'm asking when I'm doing these financial deep dives is from almost an investor perspective. Would I buy your business the way it looks today? Chances are, because pretty much I would say no to just about everybody, there's something we need to do. And that gives me straight away the first easy wins or the quick solutions, which gives us the direction of where we want to go, sometimes short-term, sometimes long-term. But how do we get this business looking and feeling really good on paper as well? And what are the steps to go with? When we're going through the financials in particular, I really want to know not what the numbers are. I can discover that without you. But what your understanding is of those numbers as well, and how you interpret them and how you explain them to me. That's really, really important. Looking for blind spots. We all have blind spots because we can't be across everything. I've got blind spots in my own business, which are friggin' obvious to somebody else. Getting an outsider's perspective is brilliant for that reason and that reason alone. And also then clarifying, the goals you set and the success metrics you set in session 1, are they actually in alignment with where you are financially? So within the first 2 sessions, we're establishing, are your goals realistic for the next 3 months, 12 months, 5 years, whatever the timeline? And if not, which one do we shift? Can we shift your business to a position where we can then get more realistic about your goals? Or do we shift your goals to a more realistic short-term perspective and move forward towards your long-term goals after that? The operational deep dive, this is probably the most painful aspect of it. Nobody wants to do this, but we all have to do it and look through what's happening with your practice management software, your PMS. What sort of reports are you pulling? What are you getting from that data? It might be about new patients, new patient numbers, and how accurately you get this. So I go through the framework I have, which is the 4 key things I look for, which is new patient numbers, your net promoter score, how satisfied your clinicians are, and as we did in the previous chapter, what your top line revenue is month to month. So that's the big 4 criteria I use. But in this session, we go quite a bit deeper. The one area we tend to focus most on for health businesses in particular is just the clinicians. What is each clinician's output versus what you're paying them? And sometimes we don't get through all of that in that session. There's a bit of homework to go away with and analyze and some spreadsheets to take so we can correlate all of those things to be like, right, these people are working well for us. These people need a bit more mentoring, support, training, etc., to drive not just business revenue, but quality of practice as well. We're also going to look quickly at a high level from a culture perspective as well. And that kind of feeds the next session, which is talking about your marketing, because your marketing going outwards is also marketing going inwards, especially social media these days. How you present on social media tells me a lot about the culture of the clinic. There's some clinics that have wild social media in the best way possible, and it does suggest there's a great culture. People are really enjoying being at work. Some of this stuff I do in the background as well in this first month because I like to get on with things. So looking at your website, your digital presence, that's stuff I do on my own time, but then we talk about it and why it is the way it is. Because often there is a reason. It's not as simple as just going, right, you need a new website. It's rare that would be the outcome because of, every decision is based on how we spend your money, how we spend your money wisely to get maximum output, not just we need to cookie cutter our way to a certain threshold for each of these components. The big focus actually is client experience, making sure you're hitting really, really good quality client experience. And we're implementing these things like a net promoter score early on. So we're measuring your client experience, we're measuring your client retention and building out those kind of operating systems, which marketing feeds operations, which feeds finance. So it's connecting the dots between all of these things. And this is fundamentally Diamond 1 done and completed for us for the long term. We might revisit this sort of thing annually, not through that many sessions, but just to refine some of these things. We might every quarter just double check where the finances are and where things are going, get a high level summary once a month, what were your numbers like last month, etc. But once this is done, it's more or less set. So we've got a really firm foundation to work from. And I think that is the fundamental difference, is establishing a really strong foundation with your coach in the first month you work together. So when you move forward, you're moving forward aligned and in the direction that you want to be going in. Absolutely critical. When we get to Diamond 2, this is essentially what is delivered at the end of that 4 sessions. So it's developing this plan and starting the process of implementation. So a 90-day action plan is what I aim to get to for everybody. Usually by the 3rd session, we're pretty much clear on it and we can refine it in session number 4 itself. We're crystal clear on where we want to go over the next 3 months as well. And there's agreed actions on your part. There's agreed direction. There's goals that we want to set. Because it's all well and good to set 12-month goals, but 12 months is a long, long time in business, especially in small business. And little changes have robust impact. A staff member resignation when you have 3 or 4 team members is 25%, 33% of your team, compared to when you have 30 or 40 team members, when it might be 2.5% or 3.5% of your team. So these things, we have to be open-minded about how some of these things may or may not shift. But in an ideal world, we've got a short period of time to at least prove, how you're going to get return on investment from what you're paying for my coaching services. There are some examples I'd like to go through. So this is with active clients I've had now and in the past, or who are actually still with me, but this is the stuff we did originally with them. So recruitment is often the bottleneck. So a classic example of someone who's got a recruitment bottleneck is someone who's got a lot of cash in their business and they're profitable. Recruitment's their bottleneck because they're not redeploying their cash to continue to grow their business. And consequently, if you're not recruiting actively and growing, inevitably you're going to be shrinking in size, because the only event that can happen is a resignation coming through, and then you lose $200,000 of revenue. So it's then developing an action plan. What does it look like for us to deploy some of that capital out of your savings account and into recruitment structures that will deliver long-term for you. So you've got an evergreen funnel of recruitment. It's not just throw it at Seek Ads. It's let's build a whole recruitment portfolio for you. So we solve this problem, not just for now, but for future periods as well, because it looks and feels like you've got your business operating really well. That's a rare person who comes in at that level, but that's probably the most fun and tangible point for delivery. And again, it's the same framework: discover, define, develop, and then deliver on this. With another client I had very early on. So actually maxed out for space. There was no more space. And it really is a case of going, well, we actually need to make a decision right here and now. Do you want to be effectively a sole trader with, another part-timer who works alongside you? And are you content in that model? Or do you want to blow this up? Do you want to take this to the next level where you open your own proper clinic space and whatnot? And this client has actually gone through that process with me and has, as of this week, literally opened their first ever private practice. I think it's a 3 or 4 room practice. And we've been able to actually develop it. So the practice is literally profitable from day one as well. So the risk element is really, really low because this started from a small base, which was a highly profitable entity within another practice. Quite incredible outcomes when you look at this through a structured and processed way, rather than just shooting from the hip and going, oh yeah, just open up next door. So trying to figure out the nuance. And now classically, most people come in at this level where there's a need for optimization. So most things are working well. Revenue's grown to a certain level, which is good. Clinicians are there. Clinicians are reasonably busy, but the profits aren't coming out of the business. And usually there's one of two things wrong, which is either a price dysfunction, like we're just charging way too little money, but more often than not, it's to do with how much we're paying in wages. If you're paying your staff a lot and then you're paying entitlements and super and everything on top of that, and then there's fluctuations in their caseloads, which occur naturally, the good months tend to be offset by the bad months, and consequently, there's not a lot of profit coming out of those businesses. Now, this is a challenge because it involves a lot of steps to effectively restructure, grandfather through a few things as well, and bring your practice from what is a functional entity in the fact that it exists and it makes money to a sustainable entity, one that's profitable for you as an owner, where you can step in, step out, you can go on a 3-month holiday if you want to, and you're not worried your practice is going to collapse. So that is probably one of the absolute critical phases to go from profitability to maturity. And that's my strength of all the things. This zone is my strength because I flew through this part as a practice owner. It took me a long time to get from startup into profitability because that just wasn't my strength of getting a lot of things going at once. But that optimization, once we were there, I say it took me a long time, it took me a year, but once we were there, we absolutely flew through optimization into maturity. And that's why I was able to stop treating within the 3rd year. I was owning my practice. I was doing everything more or less from home, going into the clinic once or twice a week, implementing a second in charge. And that's what led to my business sale within a 5-year period. So not everyone wants to go down that trajectory, but it's great to have the option. And that's something that I feel like is a real gift from working with someone like myself, to really optimize your business to get it to wherever you want it to be, whatever your goal is. And again, this is just the difference between the whole ask me anything approach, which is just no direction. And it's purely just you're paying for time with the coach, and whatever you can extract from them is great. It's an extractional transactional model, or it's an overly prescriptive one where they're not extracting enough and the coach just goes, all right, we'll just do it this way. This is what we did at our practice here. I'll just give you all the tools to it, which is, again, not really addressing the nuance of what people are coming to coaching for and how you can get deeper understanding for people with the way you deliver your coaching as well. So why this works, why the double diamond works, why it's been so successful with my private clients is because it hits depth and breadth in the first month. We go wide and down with it. So it's quite a lot of work on my part. And that is just to establish the foundation for a long-term working relationship. It's nothing more important, and we see this in clinical practice as well, is getting the foundations of our assessments right to build that long-term outcome for people. And what I like to offer, what I love to do, is deliver bespoke solutions, which are, your practice is here. You could go in this direction, but this is where your life is at. You've just had a kid, for example, or you've got 2 kids. You want to balance those things. Let's get you to a nice bespoke solution where you get the optimal balance in your world for the now, with the potential to continue growing this clinic in many years' time, or some other side projects to keep you busy. And you get real world problem solving with formal processes. There's no guesswork. It's not shooting from the hip. It's this, and this inform us to make this decision. And that's what you get with a more structured, business oriented process. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. If you do a deep analysis, when I'm talking slow, it's 1 month. And in reality, in that deep analysis, we find so many quick wins, it's not funny. So it already pays itself off just by finding those blind spots. The blind spots pay 10x dividends, because it's just those light bulb moments. And that's what's really fun about doing this. You get a structured, personalized strategy. There's 90-day execution cycles, which build accountability on your part, on my part. We stay aligned with where we're going without sailing off too far. And it's an adaptable framework. I love being adaptable. My story is one of adaptability. Like, I grew my practice. I only had 15 months of running a practice before COVID hit. So I've had to grow my clinic through the most adaptive and disruptive part of COVID in Melbourne, 2020, 2021. And then I've had 2 kids. I've got a 3rd kid on the way. Like, this is life. Life is about adapting to what's happening in the real world and not just having a fixed mindset on where you want to go. So that's something I bring to the table. Now, there is one catch. I do take great pride in my work, and I want to be able to deliver consistently the best quality of work. And consequently, I do only work with a select few people who are fundamentally values and beliefs matches, because it's about me having as much impact as I can, as it is about you getting as much from my coaching as possible. And when we're not in alignment on values, it's just a recipe for disaster. It just doesn't work well, because each step feels like friction. It's like having to convince someone to move from a contractor model to an employee model. It's not a great place to be sitting if people don't want to do that, because it just doesn't come along with the values and the beliefs that I really want to drive into purpose-driven businesses. It is really for people that want to and are keen to undergo real transformational change in their practices. And with that comes a certain level of humility. If you are against doing things in a different way, coaching probably just isn't for you, or maybe you need to find a coach who does things exactly the way you like to do them. If we really want to make transformational change, it is difficult. It's hard. Coaching is hard work. Business is hard work. The reward is the personal growth you go through and the business rewards that you get along that journey as well. And that's what makes it really amazing to do this. So who is this for? This is for owners who are sick of cookie cutter solutions, sick of like transactional models of coaching, which is just time for money. And they're willing to go deeper. They're willing to go deep, take action and commit to a higher model, something that's really going to drive change in them for the long term, in you as a person, as well as in your practice and the people who work for you. It's not for quick hacks or long conversations that go nowhere. This is for developing a structured, actionable plan that is going to move your business forward as quickly as possible. Again, slow is smooth, but smooth is fast. If you're happy with that, the next step is just getting on a call. There's a link below here where you can book in that first session. It's a 15-minute call with myself, and we can chat through everything or whatever you want to talk about and decide whether it's worth us getting into a strategy session together. And I think that's the best place to start, and it's the easiest way to get to know me and get to know whether this is the right solution for yourself and your clinic. If you're interested in seeing a little bit more about me before you get on a call, I'd really encourage you to join my Circle community, which I'll post a link for under this as well, and check out the latest content, because this is something I'm updating weekly now with business-related content that's and can make a difference in your practice. And whether you even come with me into the formal coaching journey or just take some of those resources and run with them, to be honest, it doesn't bother me that much. I'm here for the people that really want to elevate themselves and transform their practices. But if my content alone is able to do that, that's a massive win for me. And it's one of the things I really like about what I get to do on a daily basis now. To learn more, jump into my Facebook group, Purpose Driven Practices. That's a free Facebook group. You can follow me at Shane Gunner on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, or you can follow at We Are Culture of One. Our YouTube page on We Are Culture of One is also filled with heaps of new and emerging content and talks from entrepreneurs in physiotherapy business as well. So I'm really enjoying putting that together for you, and you can always learn more from any of these platforms. But honestly, the fastest, quickest solution, book a call with myself. We'll go through it. It's 15 minutes of your day, and we can figure out quickly whether this is the right solution for your practice or not. And if you're still not convinced, I'm going to link here to one of my bonus videos, which you can do a deep dive into the exact strategy that we've talked about today on this call. So have a look into that and see where you go. Good luck. Hope to see you on a call in my calendar very soon.